tonight on Judge Drudy. We've all seen Santos Bonacci talk about how he killed a man. I've had a few questions about how such a little man could accomplish such a thing. And after seeing his recent spiraling behavior, I don't think it's out of line to have some questions about that event, especially because he left the country right after. So it's not clickbait. I went and I pulled the police report, and we're gonna get into it here live tonight on Judge Drudy, the case of the vegan slaughterhouse. What up? It's your boy Drew. You're checking out that Drew World Order live. Thanks for joining me this Sunday night. That was Beezus on the beats. Shout out to Beezus. We'll probably get a new intro song for the new year coming up, but I do like that one. Shout out to the chat. Let's get into it. I won't waste your time. If you don't know who Santos is, very early on in my awakening, whatever you want to call it, I came across this guy. The YouTube channel is called MrAstrotheology. He does, back when I followed him, he did astrology. He did some of that like Black's Law dictionary type stuff, all that kind of stuff. And later he went to jail in Australia for some charges, and then he came out of jail and then went full flat earth and everything right when flat earth was getting popular on the internet. But this is the channel, MrAstrotheology. And a few years ago, I don't remember how, but I came across the information that he killed a man. And I wasn't able to find much information on it. And I've actually left comments on his videos a few years ago asking if he wanted to talk about that at all. And I've never wavered from the fact of what I've said is that I fully believe in the use of lethal force in a self-defense situation. So some people say murder, but if it was the story as he claims it, it sounds like it would be a self-defense situation. I put this as a short. This is him talking about it.
About me, or tries to hurt me or my syncretism, I swear to God, on Judgment Day, you will get the thumbs down by me, because I will be there, waiting for you. Touch me and see what happens. When Stephen Durkee came to me on the 13th of October 2019 with a baseball bat and a sharp knife to murder me, he was attacking Molly already. He hit her on the head twice. He smashed, it caved her head in. She's still getting treatments now. I busted in the door to save her life with my bare hands. 15 minutes later, my angels protecting me had him stone, motherless, dead. So come at me.
Let's take another.
The only thing I have a question with that for is because he's so small, but those little guys are crazy, right? So, and being in the truth community, everybody is skeptical. I've heard, different accounts or whatever. You never really know what to fully believe. And then after seeing him go completely unhinged recently and saying stuff like this, I'll just play a short clip. I don't think it's that out of the realm to have even more questions about what really happened when you hear him talk like this. And this is from the Tartarian Truth channel. This is the Santos live stream that he deleted. Tartarian Truth put it back up. He's in here right now, I think. So shout out to Tartarian Truth.
You are not my friend, you never will be, and I will spit in your face, and if I have a knife, I will fucking stab you and slit your fucking throat. I can't stand dumb cunts, and 99.99% of you listening right now are a dumb cunt and a fucking ugly cunt. Look at yourself in the mirror and you'll see that you're fucking as ugly as dog shit. I hope you fucking die, and I hope you die really, really fucking quick, and I'll have a party. Auntie fucking dumb cunt. And
so he's been getting more and more unhinged with the violent rants after that, after the killing and after getting involved with Daniel. And I'm not going to really get into the Daniel video here. If you go to my channel here, we did a video on this channel, a week or two ago. Let me put it in the chat real quick. I had Malika come on, his friend, I guess, his friend, and she gave her testimony. I put that link in the chat of how his kind of mental health went down after linking up with Daniel. So we're not going to really get into the Daniel thing tonight, but you can watch Malika's account of that here. I think it's a pretty good video and engaging, and hopefully I can get up with Malika again soon. And to prove that, and she's in here right now, that's Anna Perna in the chat, so shout out. And to prove that I was huge into Santos when I first got into all this stuff. There's a video also on my page that I'll drop in the chat right now, where it's basically like a copy pasta of all of Santos's teachings that I learned with my own little twist on it. And I have that up on my page from a couple years ago, where I go through the Zodiac and do my own little interpretation of how he does it. And I learned that all from Santos. And I say right in the video, like, that's from Santos. And also from watching Santos, he talked about Bill Donahue. That was another big influence on me very early on, and when I got into all this information. So I learned of Bill Donahue from Santos too. So Santos was a big part of my waking up process, whatever you want to call it. And it's been kind of sad to see him like go downhill like so fast, like he's unhinged and he's off the rails. Boru threw down $20. I do appreciate you, and what a perfect time, because next I was going to bring up this. I wanted to know what happened with the man and the death in Santos, and see if it matched the story that he tells. When Santos tells the story, it doesn't waver very much. So I went and he gave the name of the guy, the date, and everything, and I was able to look it up and request the police report. So I do want to take time to show this here. It did cost me $50 out of my pocket to get this. So I'm going to ask anyone that finds this information, if you find it worth your while, if you could even donate even $1 or $2, if we could just kind of crowdfund this. CashApp, Venmo, PayPal, same name on all three, Get Chalked Up. Some people might not think $1 or $2 is a lot, but it adds up if a lot of people threw down $1 or $2, or if you'd like to become a member of the channel or throw down any super chats or whatever. YouTube takes 30% of that, but hopefully we can kind of crowdfund this $50. It was $10 non-refundable just to start it, and then once I gave them all the information, they wanted $40 more before they would release it to me. And that's from Oregon. It's different in every I think even every city is kind of different with that. So if you can, any little bit helps. But without further ado, man, let's get into it. So I requested the records. I had the name, Stephen Durkee. I had the area. I had everything I needed. So let's get into it, man. I'm not going to waste your time. Yeah, someone in the chat's calling it a smear campaign. Santos actively talks about this. So I went and got the official police report of the death investigation of Stephen Durkee. I did my best to edit out all the phone numbers and addresses in here. I have looked at this. And because you truthers are crazy, man. And let me say this too. If I did miss anything, I don't want anyone I don't want to condone anybody contacting anyone or, calling these numbers, knocking on these doors. I'm pretty sure I got all the information blocked out though, because you guys are nuts, man. Borrow through another 5. Appreciate you. Quantum of Nonsense PLN $50. I don't know what PLN is, but I do appreciate that. And ME threw down 15. Keep up the great investigative work. He says, I appreciate you guys. Because like I said, man, I don't personally know the guy Santos, but I loved his work back in the day. I feel like I've kind of outgrown it now, but it's sad to see him spiraling the way he's spiraling. So let's get into it. Death investigation report. This is where it happened. 8 in the morning, just what Santos said, 8:40 in the morning, whatever. Official time of death, 8:55. Stephen Durkee, 48 years old, 6'1", 190 pounds. Way bigger than Santos. The report says originally found lying on the right side, the body, they're talking about facing north wall of dining room. Body was rolled to back by initial responding deputies to render aid and assess medical condition. Handcuffs also applied at this time. SA1 through down 499. I haven't seen you in a while. Appreciate it. Let me also I want to say this. If anyone wants to do like a reaction video to this, I'm pretty strict with my copyright claims. If people want to use my stuff, if I don't really know them, but if anyone wants to use this and do a reaction video or whatever, feel free. So Stephen Durkee, 48. Found dead. The name of what the person Santos claims he was with matches up. Molly, 45 years old. Brief witness statement. Durkee arrived at Niffin's residence, pounding on the door. That's Molly Niffin and Stephen Durkee. When she opened the door, he assaulted her with the baseball bat. Again, what Santos claims. This progressed to include Niffin's house guest, who Durkee attempted to stab. Durkee died as a result of stab wounds received. Here it is again. These were the people involved. Molly. Activity at time of death, reportedly assaulting Niffin and Bonacci with baseball bat and knife. Found lying on the floor of the dining room, baseball bat and knife in the dining room. This is the game Clue. Position of weapon in relation to the deceased, the ball bat lying on the floor in the adjacent room, knife found on the table about 10 feet away from the body. Indicate alcohol use presumptive positive for THC at autopsy. So Durkee was high as a kite. Any significant changes to lifestyle? It says he, Stephen Durkee, and Niffin recently ended a relationship. Deceased lived by himself. Lacerations and swelling to the rear and top of head. So he got cut in the head. 2 lacerations or punctures in upper right arm. 1 laceration puncture to left rear chest torso. 2 lacerations or punctures to outside left forearm. These were all the police that were involved. The people involved: Santos Bonacci, Mary Lucinda Ansley. The investigation reads on October 13th, the exact date Santos gives, 2019. I responded to the address in North Eugene regarding a death investigation. Patrol deputies responded to the location regarding an assault complaint that was received via 911. At the location, deputies found Niffen and Bonacci injured and Ansley present but not injured. They also found Durkee deceased in the residence. Niffen and Bonacci were transported by ambulance to Riverbed Hospital due to their injuries. Ansley remained at the location. Detective Solano and Simmons responded to the Riverbend Hospital. Detective Solano interviewed Niffen while Detective Simmons interviewed Bonacci. Refer to their reports for Niffen and Bonacci's statements. Detective Whitaker interviewed Ansley, referred to her report for Ansley's statement. I proceeded to photograph the residence where the assaults occurred. The events associated to the assaults appear to be contained in the living room entryway, the kitchen, and the dining room. Durkee's body was lying on the floor of the dining room. Refer to my supplemental report pertaining to the residence and evidence collected. Physical evidence at the location was consistent with the sequence of events Niffen, Bonacci, and Ansley provided during their interviews. A full and complete autopsy was performed by Dr. Davis, Lane County Medical Examiner. Missy threw down. Appreciate you, Missy. This is a 71-page report. I have the full thing. Here's further. Next page. Here's all the police involved, the people involved. It says deputies here were dispatched on October 13th, 2019 to report of an assault that had just occurred. Dispatch noted the suspect was still on the scene and he had hit the complainant, identified as Molly Niffen, hit on the head with a baseball bat. The suspect, identified as Stephen Durkee, was reported still on the scene, and both Molly and Stephen were bleeding. Exactly what Santos claims. Santos doesn't really waver when he talks about this and says different things. Because I'm so skeptical of everything, there were small things that I've heard him say that I kind of thought might lend some suspicion to this, but so far we have exactly what he says. All these deputies named here, and I responded. Upon arrival, I observed a single-story residential home with an eastern-facing door. Deputies and troopers set up a perimeter on the eastern end of the residence. I observed 3 individuals, identified as Molly Santos and Mary Ansley, exit the eastern-facing door. All 3 individuals were instructed to walk to the south and stand behind a large camper trailer on the southern side of the driveway. I observed the complainant, identified as Molly Niffen, had blood on her left ear. Deputies and troopers entered the residence and observed a male identified as Stephen Durkee inside the residence. Durkee was pronounced deceased by fire personnel at 8:55. Molly and Santos were both assessed by medical personnel and transported to Riverbend Hospital for an evaluation. Deputy Wallace and I responded to Riverbed Hospital. Upon arrival, I observed Molly lying in a bed, emergency room number 35. Molly was wearing a neck brace. I observed Molly had a bite mark on her left hand, blood on her ear, and a cut on her finger. I took digital images of Molly and her injuries. I later submitted the digital images into evidence. See Riverbed records for list of injuries. I responded to emergency room number 41 and observed Santos lying in a hospital bed. I observed Santos had blue and purple bruising to his forehead, an abrasion on his neck, abrasion on his arm, and multiple cuts on his hand. I took digital images of Santos and his injuries. See Riverbed medical records for list of injuries. I later submitted the digital images into evidence. I observed Santos' clothing was in a box in the room. I also observed he was still wearing his pants. Deputy Wallace and I processed Santos' clothing. I took digital images of the clothing. See all this for further. I submitted it to evidence. I submitted Molly's clothing to evidence. Detective Silano contacted Santos and explained we wanted to retrieve personal information from his cell phone regarding the incident. I filed out the Lane County Sheriff's Office consent to search form and indicated under property described as cell phone iPhone black with black leather case. I allowed Santos to read the form and he voluntarily signed the bottom of the form. I submitted the original to evidence. I attached a copy. Molly and Santos were both assessed by medical personnel and released from the hospital. I transported Santos and Molly back to the address per Detective Solano's request. So everything checks out according to what he says up to this point. These are all the evidence that was entered. These are the people. Another report here, because I think this is all the different sheriff's office and different like troopers and everyone. I think they each submit a report, or each officer, maybe, I'm not sure. On 10/13/2019 at 8:42, I was dispatched to the residence, a report of an assault. Dispatch advised me the involved males had a baseball bat and the other had a knife. I responded to the location, established a perimeter. 3 individuals exited. The male that exited was identified as Santos Bonacci. Santos advised that there was only one person left in the residence. He stated this male was injured inside the house and he did not know if he was breathing. Trooper Clark, Trooper Zimmerman, DS Mars, and I approached the front door of the house, which was wide open. I observed a male, later identified as Stephen James Durkee, lying on his right side in the dining room facing the wall. We yelled police several times, ordered the occupants to announce themselves. We entered the residence searching for additional victims to render aid to the Durkee lying on the ground. Durkee was not responding to any commands. Durkee's shirt was soaked in blood, and there was a large amount of blood on the floor next to him. I maintained cover on Durkee while the troopers continued clearing the house. No additional occupants were found. After the remainder of the house was clear, I approached Durkee and removed a wood-handled knife that was sheathed in his left thigh pocket. I placed the knife on the kitchen floor a short distance away. I handcuffed Durkee in the front and checked for pulse. I felt no pulse and observed Durkee was not breathing. I radioed dispatch to paramedics code 3 and began chest compressions for CPR. Trooper Clark retrieved an airway mask from his first aid kit and assisted in providing breaths between my set of compressions. Digital photographs were taken. I continued CPR for about 3 minutes until I was relieved by paramedics who checked Durkee for a pulse. So when you see those red lines on this, that's what I cropped out, and then any of these black HIPAA lines, that's how I got it from the whatever police. I exited the residence and set up a perimeter. I began a crime scene log. I was tasked with taking photos of the exterior and taking general photos by Sergeant Gleaser. Blah, blah, blah. Here's another one. All the people involved. These are all the people the top 2 were involved, and these are everyone they contacted. Deputies were dispatched to a report of an assault that had just occurred at the address. Dispatch noted the suspect was still on the scene and he had hit the complainant, identified as Molly Niffen, on the head with a baseball bat. The suspect, identified as Stephen Durkee, was reportedly still on the scene, and both Molly and Stephen were bleeding. When I arrived on the scene, deputies were requesting code 3 medics and they were starting CPR on a male inside of the residence. Medics arrived on the scene and transported Molly and Santos Bonacci to the hospital. I assisted Sergeant Glesser with clearing the backyard. We accessed the backyard by jumping the fence on the side of the house. We were able to check most of the backyard except a locked shop on the northwest corner of the property. We left the backyard through an unlocked door on the side of the house. We walked directly to the house, to the front yard, and I left the crime scene as Deputy Nash was putting up crime scene tape. I was then assigned to canvass the neighboring houses to locate any witnesses. I first contacted 2 residents directly across the street from the involved house. I observed there were cameras on the front of their residence. I spoke with the primary resident of the house, Michael Altavilla. Michael told me that the cameras on the front of his house had just been put up and were not connected. Michael said he had gotten up for work and was in the shower during the dispute. When he got out of the shower, he heard the police sirens coming. Michael's roommate, Russ Adriano, said he was in the bedroom and heard people yelling and banging at the involved house. Russ said it sounded like the yelling was coming from the front yard of the involved house. Russ guessed he heard the yelling about 30 minutes prior to the police arrival. Russ pointed at the bedroom window, which was on the front of the house, facing the involved house. I then had contact with the resident, Robert Westbrook. He told me he had just gotten home from the store around 8:30, heard Molly's dog barking. Robert could hear Molly yelling, and he assumed she was yelling at the dog. Robert then looked out the window to see the dog standing in the front yard facing back into the front door of the involved house while he was barking. Robert then saw Molly come out of the house and go to the van in the driveway. Molly's voice was raised while talking or arguing with a male. She went to get something out of the van, then returned to the house while talking with a raised voice the entire time. John Smith, appreciate you. I spoke with Arthur McMahon. He lives in the house across to the north. McMahon walked his dogs at 8 o'clock. He was in the grass to the north of the involved house between the fence and with the dogs. He did not hear or observe anything. I had contacted this below listed neighbors who did not see anything involved with the house. I attempted to contact these neighbors, but was not able. From previous calls for service, I know that Stuart Logan, who lives nearby, has cameras on the front of his property facing downhill. These cameras may be able to record the north side of the property. I attempted to contact Stuart via phone, but he did not answer. I left a voicemail for him to call back. I later learned from Detective Jones that he had talked with Stuart in person. Stuart told Detective Jones he still had my contact information and would call me after he reviewed the video from his cameras. At the time of authoring this report, I had not heard from Stuart. So these are the witnesses' statements. Exactly what it just said, pretty much just reiterates it. They heard the yelling and all that. Another sheet here, next page. 8:42, I responded here. Dispatch, there were 3 individuals. They followed them to Riverbed Hospital, where an examination was scheduled to be performed on Durkee's body. Upon arriving at the hospital, I met with forensic pathologist Dr. Daniel Davis, who was reviewing the results of a CT scan of Durkee's body. Davis then began the procedure by conducting an external and internal examination of Durkee's body. During this examination, in part, Dr. Davis, HIPAA, man, something good there, but it's gone. I seized the knife, the blood dot, the DNA card were all obtained during the autopsy. Another page here. So all the people that responded. This is what they took for evidence. A CD audio of Molly. Interview taken at Riverbend Hospital. Wallet belonging to Stephen Durkee. CD containing 15 photographs of Durkee's vehicle and contents. Same thing again, a different officer's report. I arrived to a dispute that occurred. Stephen Durkee arrived with a bat. She was bleeding, and a friend later identified as Santos Bonacci helped fend off Durkee. All the involved were bleeding inside the residence. Responding deputies arrived, and Durkee inside the kitchen was unconscious. CPR was initiated. Niffen and Bonacci were transported to Riverbend Hospital. I spoke with Niffen in room 35. She was on her back in the hospital with a neck brace on. She had blood in her hands. Blood was coming out of her left ear. I was advised she had a fractured skull from blunt force trauma. So another, exactly what Santos says. It hasn't deviated from anything he says at all. I advised her who I was, and I advised her that I was going to record an audio interview instead of my digital recorder. During my contact, I asked Niffen if she would be willing to sign a medical release form for the incident. She agreed. She signed the form. I asked her if we could look at her house, and if she was willing, let us have DNA sample, and downloaded her cell phone data to obtain the text messages between herself and Durkee. She also agreed. She said Durkee came to the house around 8:30 and knocked on the door. When she opened it up, he forced his way inside of the house and hit her in the head with a baseball bat. She then went down, and he hit her on the head with the bat again. She said she didn't remember much after that, but remember her friend Bonacci coming to her aid and Durkee and Bonacci fighting. She said at one point she saw Durkee produce a knife and wasn't sure what happened after that, but noted there was a lot of blood everywhere. She had no idea what the condition of Durkee was and advised she wanted to press charges for assault. So she was messed up and didn't even know he was dead. There's a hip extraction, and then it says they were given a ride back to the location to collect the clothing seized by the deputies. When they arrived back at the incident location, we asked if they'd be willing to do a video walkthrough regarding what they remembered of the incident. They both agreed. Detective Rogers recorded the walkthrough videos and later placed them into evidence. Appreciate you, Dang. I was then asked to do a search of Durkee's vehicle that was located in front of the residence. A red Subaru Forester. The vehicle was unlocked. Inside the passenger seat was keys for the vehicle along with Durkee's wallet. Inside the wallet was Durkee's Oregon driver's license and some credit cards. There was also miscellaneous paperwork and business cards. I seized the wallet and later placed it to the photographs of the vehicle into evidence. An autopsy is planned for Durkee. In the interview here, it said Niffen said she was assaulted by a guy she had been in a minor relationship with. She said Stephen Durkee had been acting strangely and possessive. He believed she was engaging in sexual behavior with Bonacci and was acting more and more aggressive and threatening. She said he had sent her a number of text messages telling her he was going to come over and hit her in the head with a baseball bat and then cut off her head. She ended up blocking him from all social media contacts and via text the prior day. She was in her bedroom at 8:30, heard a knock on the door. She opened the front door, and it was Durkee. He pushed her back into the house and hit her in the left side of the head with a baseball bat. She fell back, and he hit her head again. Niffen could not remember much about what happened after that, but did see her newer friend Bonacci come to her aid and fight with Durkee. I asked about her relationship with Durkee, and she said they had been in a complicated relationship before, but had separated from him sometime and had recently just brought him back into her life due to a project. She had known him for 3 years or so. When Bonacci came to help Niffen, Durkee attacked him and they fought in the living room. I asked her for consent to look for weapons in the house, and she said there was a bat and a knife that he had brought in the house. I had her sign a medical form to search the phone and for DNA. She said Durkee had not been physically violent with her prior, but had been verbally violent and had some strange idea she belonged to him and she shouldn't be involved with other males. She said she was never really in a true relationship with Durkee and was under the impression she was free to do what she wanted without constraint. She liked Durkee as a person, but didn't like his behavior. Niffen said Bonacci was a famous astrologer and she had contacted him online. She heard he was coming to Eugene and asked Bonacci to come stay with her. Bonacci came and brought a lady named Marie along with him. Marie stayed in a van outside while Bonacci stayed in the south bedroom. Niffen stayed in her own room on the north side of the house. Bonacci was scheduled to stay a few weeks with her before Bonacci would move on to the next place he was visiting. Durkee knew about him coming to stay with her and got mad for her not calling and he had just recently lost his job as well. She said he was having a mental breakdown, Durkee. Niffen asked about Bonacci and said she was wishing to press charges against Durkee. The recording was stopped after that when Niffen was released from the hospital. So she doesn't even know the guy's dead. I did totally forget to bring up the guy. I was going to have these up. Stephen Durkee. This is the guy. Looks like a totally normal guy, but I guess you never know. It says he's survived by 2 daughters. It doesn't say much about it here, but this is the guy. When you look at him here, I think that's him. Stephen Durkee. Hold on one second. There's one more that shows him working at like a lab for animals. Is that it? There was only a few articles. This is his obituary. There's much more to the report too. We're gonna go back to it in a second. When I looked this up too, when I was looking for police reports about it, there wasn't very much at all online or any of the newspapers or anything. See if I can find that one where it shows this is where he is in direct. He headed something here at this called Terra Research, where he was the person in charge of the animals that they did do animal testing on. And it was his job to make sure that the animals were treated as humanely as possible, even though these were these experiments and everything. And he was, I don't know if it's going to load here. I'll let it load. We can go back to the thing. But it seemed like he took it pretty serious. He's saying this, these animals are giving their life for us. The least we can do is make sure they're treated as ethically as possible. Yeah, I'm not sure if that's going to load right now. We'll just let it load. Go back to the reports. There's much more. Same thing here. Detectives and I responded. Death investigation. At the location, I noted that to be a single-story stick-built residence located on the southwest corner. There were 2 vehicles in the driveway. I later learned the Toyota Corolla belongs to Niffen, who rents the location. The gray van belongs to a friend of Niffen's, Ansley. So there was just someone living in a van in a driveway, apparently. Shortly after I arrived, I advised Detective Solano obtained consent from Niffen for us to enter her residence. We were also advised Durkee was Niffen's ex-boyfriend and had been threatening to kill her over the course of the prior several days. Refer to Detective Solano's report regarding Niffen's statement. I photographed the residence, both interior and exterior, submitted them to evidence. Inside the residence, it appeared the garage space had been converted into a large bedroom. I later learned that this is where Bonacci was sleeping. The room did not appear to be involved in the dispute, as aside from being cluttered, the room did not appear disheveled. Niffen was sleeping in the bedroom at the opposite end of the residence. The room also did not appear disheveled or involved in what occurred during the incident. So Santos and the woman are sleeping in different rooms even, and this guy shows up just nuts with a bat. This guy was fucking tripping. The living room, which is accessed via the front door, led to several leading to the converted garage bedroom, and the kitchen and dining room areas was disheveled. There were several items, crystals, candles, and other items on the floor, some of which were broken. These items appeared to have been originally against the shelf. I also noted a large amount of blood on the carpet floor of the living room, large pool of blood on the couch, which was along the east wall of the living room. There were several musical instruments in the southeast corner of the living room next to the couch, which looked as though they had been disturbed. Lying on the floor just in front of the couch, I noticed a brown leather knife sheath laying on the floor. In the middle of the living room, I noted an Easton brand baseball bat, which had red staining on it. I also noted a wooden-handled knife laying on the small table in the entryway. The blades of the knife was approximately 3 inches, and there was blood transfer on the blade portion of the knife. On the vinyl flooring of the entryway, I noted several blood drops. I also noted blood transfer on the west wall of the living room next to the doorway to both the kitchen and the dining room. There was a white baseball cap lying on the floor near the piano on the south wall of the living room. Niffen identified the hat as belonging to Durkee. She stated he was wearing it when she initially opened the door. Durkee's body was laying on the back in the middle of the dining room next to the beanbag chair. So this house has musical instruments, crystals, pianos. There's all the hippie stuff in this house. The initial deputies who responded found Durkee laying on his right side on the beanbag. He was handcuffed, rolled onto his back. Blood smeared, blood pooled, blah, blah, blah. Short distance from the body, I noted another short-bladed wood knife. I was told the knife was removed from the sheath in Durkee's pocket and thrown away from the body when the initial deputies restrained Durkee and assessed his vitals. The pants Durkee were wearing were dark in color but appeared to have large amounts of blood on them. Medical examiners Dean Miller Hoyt and I assessed Durkee's injuries. We noted 2 lacerations or punctures next to his upper right arm, a large laceration or puncture to the left rear side of his torso, 2 lacerations or punctures to the outside of his left forearm, and a laceration on the back of his head. Santos cut him up, man. Cut him up even in the back of the head. These were the injuries we could locate and identify during our cursory examination of Durkee's body at the location. He was more thoroughly examined by the Lane County Medical Examiner. Dr. Davis, during the autopsy he performed the following morning at the Lane County Morgue, referred to the autopsy report for more thorough and complete list, blah, blah. In the kitchen, the blood pooling and smears covered much of the floor, as well as some of the cabinets and the countertop around the sink. I noticed there was a pink paring knife on the counter next to the blood smears on the counter and the sink. I also noticed a boot print in blood on the floor next to the knife on the floor in the kitchen area. I noted the bloody boot print was consistent in appearance to the boots Durkee was wearing. I checked with the initial responding deputies. All stated they did not walk through the kitchen and the short hall connecting the kitchen to the dining room. Medical examiner investigator Miller Hoyt arranged for Durkee's body to be transported to the morgue, as the medical examiner's office was maintaining jurisdiction of the body pending an autopsy. In addition to the blood on the floor of the front door entryway, I found blood drops on a vinyl floor at the door leading to the converted garage bedroom. I also noted a small amount of red stains on the bifold closet doors in the garage bedroom. The closet in the garage bedroom is located in the southwest corner of the residence. All 3 knives were located and seized as was the knife sheath on the floor of the living room, the ball bat, and the baseball cap. Niffen identified as belonging to Durkee. Took blood swabs, blah, blah, blah. Additionally, I inspected all the exterior doors of the residence. None of them showed signs of force being open. Additionally, Niffen had marijuana grow in the backyard of the residence. However, the marijuana grow and associated equipment did not appear to be involved with the assault. Detectives Solano conducted walkthroughs with Niffen and Bonacci. I recorded and brief walkthroughs. I had later transferred the video to disk and submitted to the evidence, blah, blah. The 3 knives, it's all submitted to evidence. What do you guys think, man? Let me see if that other one loaded up yet. Yeah, here he is. So this is the guy, Stephen Durkee. The quote underneath him here says, by standardizing and harmonizing how animals are cared for, you can create consistency across labs and institutions. He says, nothing is more important in an animal study than the animal itself. The righteous idealism that fed Durkee's Greenpeace activism in his younger, wilder days still beats in his chest as administrator of OSU's Institutional Animal Care and Use Committee, a group of research veterans, ethicists, and lay people who meet monthly to review each and every proposal for an animal using project before it can go forward. His job is to make sure no animal is used needlessly. No animal suffers undue pain. No animal dies in vain. It's not a light topic, he says. Day in and day out, there's a whole seriousness. To me, these animals are heroes. They're giving their life for the greater good. Man. So that was what he did, basically. He was a Greenpeace nut back in his younger days. That's how you know he's nuts, I guess. Rest in peace, Stephen Durkee, man. So far, there's zero anything to question what Santos says. And like I said at the beginning, I fully support the use of lethal force in some kind of attack like this. Got 168 people in the chat. If everyone could just take a second, hit the thumbs up. I appreciate you. If you do find this work worth your while, if you could just donate. Every small donation helps. This did cost me $50 out of pocket. Here's the same, another thing. This guy, Durkee, arrived with a baseball bat. She was bleeding. Santos helped. Well, they showed up. Durkee was unconscious. They went to Riverbed for injuries. Pretty much the same thing over and over by different officers. Here we go, though. On 10/15/2019, so a few days later, I was contacted by Lane County Sheriff's Office Dispatch. They advised a female was calling in to talk about the case. They said her name was Kim and asked if I would talk with her. I had them patch the phone call to my desk. I made contact with Kim Donahue. She said she had been in a relationship with Durkee, which ended in 2013. She said she had a similar ending to their relationship and wanted me to know about it. I took her statement. So this woman, Kim Donahue, dated Stephen Durkee, called up because she knew he was crazy. I think the guy looks pretty normal, but that's how you never know, right? The guy's a nut. Kim Donahue, she said she had been in a relationship with Durkee, which ended in 2013. She said it lasted for a while and was nice at the beginning. Then he started changing how he treated her and what he was like around her. She ended up with him stalking her constantly and infiltrating every part of her life. I asked for an example, and she said he would follow her around and look in her phone. He would try and keep her from doing certain things with certain people and was really jealous. When she tried to end the relationship, things went sideways. She said he became erratic and unstable. She said he would threaten her with violence, but was never actually violent with her. All the ladies in here, do you guys know a guy like this? Is this like, I don't want to say normal, but is this more common than people think? Crazy dudes like this? She said she believed the threats, though, and that's why she tried to get a restraining order. She was not granted one due to the fact that he had not actually followed through with the threats. Donahue ended up going to a women's space for help because she was so afraid of him. They helped her find a new place and get some distance from him. I asked her what caused him to finally give up on stalking her, and she said he got a new girlfriend and just dropped off the map. She felt bad for the next woman and knew it had to be someone kind and gentle because that is the kind of person he liked to insert himself into their lives with. He liked control and manipulation. I asked if she knew anything else about him that would be helpful, and she said he lost his job at OSU. That's this one that I just had up here. He was at the OSU's Institutional Animal Care Use Committee. She said he lost that job working in the lab and told her it was due to a conflict in the department. She said she ran into another person from the lab who told her the truth. She was told he was fired for sexual harassment. She never verified this information and didn't think she would be given information to verify it from OSU. So Stephen Durkee, dead as a turkey. If I would have got this before Thanksgiving, we could have done Durkee Day. Carved up Durkee. Looks normal, but he's a nut, right? Look at this guy. Way bigger than Santos, too. Got bodied. He took his last breath. Santos was laying over him while this guy took his last breath. He probably busted in, hit the woman in the head, and thought, man, this little guy, it'll be easy to mop the floor with this little guy. And look what happened to him. Yeah, exact. EBT, this is what I've been saying since I had to pre-read this and kind of screen it. It's exactly what I've been saying. This dude, he fucked around and he found out, man. He fucked with the wrong dude. These little dudes are crazy. Nothing here makes me not believe that Santos did the right thing. Santos said he saved that woman at this point in the report, and we're very far. We're halfway through it. It looks like everything Santos says is true. Same thing here. They were able to get a hold of the guy that had the cameras across the street. The chat already has conspiracy. Santos Jr. did the killing. Santos Sr. is too enlightened. No, man. Santos got his ass. Santos chalked him up. So here they get in touch with the guy that had cameras that was like across the street. It says this guy lived here. He had cameras in front of his property that were able to, they may be able to record the north side of the property. I contacted him by phone. He didn't answer. I left a voicemail to call me back. I later learned from Detective Jones that he had talked with Stewart in person. He told them he still had my contact information. I responded to Stewart's house for the video. Stewart advised his cameras recorded Durkee's vehicle drive by the address 3 times before parking in front of the house. Stewart was not able to download the video from his hard drive. I used my department-issued camera to record the video of Stewart's security. Stewart first showed me the current video, and I observed the date on the screen was correct. The time showed 12:05. My watch showed 12:07. So this guy caught him on a camera in front of his house driving by 3 times before he parked and got out with the bat. The first video shows the involved vehicle turn around 7:43. The vehicle drives by, and then it comes back again at 8:07. And then at 8:08, the vehicle comes by. Or at 8:11, the vehicle comes back into view, leaving and turns again, and then turns south. At 8:25, the vehicle turns from the south. At 8:25:45, it shows the vehicle park in front of the involved house. The view of the vehicle is blocked by the wooden fence at the location, but the top of the car is still visible. I recorded a zoomed-in view of this time, and you can see above the fence a person's head that gets out of the driver's seat of the vehicle. The person walks around the back of the vehicle and then to the front yard of the house involved. So it's funny when I talk about, there's other channels you guys see me criticizing, the defenders of those channels will be like, man, police can just say whatever they want. When you look at this report, man, this is a 71-page report where they're getting as much information like as they possibly can, right? To make sure this has to be able to stand up in court. They need surveillance. They need anything they can get more than just witness testimony before they make a charge or decide to not charge someone, like in this case here. Here's another one, similar report. Stephen Durkee hit her in the head with a baseball bat before another male, later identified as Santos took the bat and Durkee and hit him. Deputies responded and secured the scene. Pretty much the same thing. I contacted Bonacci in the ER room while Detective Simmons contacted Niffen in a separate ER room, which was down the hall. I obtained 2 audio recorded interviews with Bonacci, during which he described the situation in which Durkee arrived at the residence and attacked Niffen with a bat after she answered Durkee's knock at the front door. Bonacci came to Niffen's defense. Durkee reportedly came at him with a baseball bat, at which time Bonacci became fighting and struggling with Durkee in an attempt to take the bat away from him and protect Niffen from further assault. Exactly what Santos claims. He's never wavered. Per Bonacci, he and Durkee fought over the bat, ended up wrestling on the couch and floor as Bonacci tried to restrain Durkee, as Durkee continuously tried to assault Bonacci and Niffen. At one point, while Bonacci was trying to restrain Durkee on the living room couch, Durkee pulled out a knife from an area of his pants and began to try and repeatedly stab Santos, Santos advised he and Niffen fought back against Durkee's assaults to the point Durkee ultimately collapsed on the kitchen floor and he and Niffen fled the residence to summon help. While speaking to Bonacci, I observed several lacerations on his hands and fingers, which he said he sustained while trying to take the knife away from Durkee. Bonacci advised he is originally from Australia and is in the United States on a 1-year visa. His plans are to eventually move to America permanently, but for now he will be traveling from Oregon to California, then to Costa Rica for a short time before hopefully returning to Eugene. Bonacci advised he would continue to cooperate with the investigation and will always be available by cell phone. Big HIPAA redaction here, and then it says, because of this, we waited until they were discharged. And Deputy Conway then provided them with a courtesy ride back to Niffen's residence, the incident's location. Upon our arrival back at the residence, I asked Bonacci if he would voluntarily provide me with fingerprints to assist in the investigation, which he said he would, and then he signed the consent form. He also signed the medical release pertaining to the injuries. Likewise, Niffen also consented to providing me with her fingerprints as well as DNA samples, which was documented on a consent to search form prepared by Detective Simmons. They searched the vehicles that were there. Ansley, the lady that was sleeping in the trailer or the camper or whatever in the driveway, she had been asleep in the vehicle at the time of the incident and was summoned by Niffen and Bonacci immediately following the incident. Niffen and Bonacci both agreed to conduct separate video recording scene walkthroughs in which they went back into the residence and demonstrated to the best of their memory the details of how the incident unfolded. These walkthroughs were video recorded by Detective Chad Rogers. It's Chad. During the time of Niffen's short walkthrough, so the woman, Molly Niffen, appreciate you, Tartarian Truth. So during the time of Molly Niffen's short walkthrough, she became very lightheaded and dizzy, seemingly due to the head injury she sustained only a short time before. A short time later, Niffen also threw up, which prompted law enforcement on scene to summon medics to respond back to the location. As medics evaluated and or treated Niffen, I watched as they seemed surprised the hospital released her from the hospital with such a head injury. She's still bleeding from the left ear, etc. Nonetheless, despite the medics urging Niffen to go back to the hospital, she refused, saying if the hospital released her, she must be fine. The scene was ultimately released back to Niffen, at which time her and her landlord were making arrangements to have a company respond to clean up the blood and any other biohazard that was present because of the incident. The lady was sleeping through the incident because she's outside in a trailer. She's sleeping in a camper or something outside. That's how there's someone living in. So this lady has like a hippie house, right? And there's someone living in a trailer outside on the driveway or something, it seems like. Here's what y'all came for right here. The interview with Santos Bonacci from the investigators. Can I insert an ad right here? We'll be back after these messages. I think it did it. The interview. Now back to our show. The interview with Santos by the investigators. Bonacci advised me he met Niffen in person for the first time about 12 days ago and had known her for a couple of years online as they share common interests such as astrology. Bonacci had come to Eugene as Niffen wanted Bonacci to teach her and her friends astrology, and they were mutually going to help one another out as Niffen does event planning, promotions, etc. Bonacci had never met Durkee, and in fact only seen one vague picture of him prior to the incident on today's date. Bonacci was aware Durkee had been making death threats via text messages to Niffen for the past few days, and Bonacci has been encouraging Niffen to contact the police and or get a restraining order against Durkee. However, Niffen did not do so. Since arriving in Eugene and staying in Niffen's residence, he has been sleeping in a bedroom which is a converted attached garage, while Niffen stays in her room on the other end of the residence. And Santos is a gentleman. On this date, Bonacci woke up to hear banging and Niffen's dog going crazy inside of the residence. As the door from his bedroom leading to the kitchen and living room area was closed, Bonacci did not see anything that was occurring. However, despite this, he had a feeling from the commotion that Durkee was there, coming to follow through with the threats. Immediately thinking Niffen must have fled from the residence out the back, Bonacci's first thought was to also flee the residence out the sliding glass door, which leads to his bedroom to the driveway. Just as he began to do this, Bonacci heard Niffen screaming inside the residence, and Bonacci knew he had to go help save her. Santos is a G. Anyone that's talked shit about Santos, look at this guy. He could have dipped out. He's 105 pounds. He could have just peaced out. He heard his friend was hurting, and he went in there. This little man went in there and did save her, as he claims. Bonacci said he went out and opened the bedroom door, which accessed the rest of the house, to find a male with a baseball bat who he assumed was Durkee. Bonacci realized and or observed Niffen had been struck in the head with a baseball bat. At the same time, Durkee began coming after him with the bat. Bonacci engaged Durkee and grabbed a hold of the bat, eventually taking it away from Durkee. However, Durkee, who is considerably larger than Bonacci, tackled Bonacci onto the living room couch, whereupon Bonacci said he wrapped him up the best he could in some sort of wrestling hold in order to try and restrain Durkee. Bonacci advised he was punching Durkee and yelling at Niffen to hit him with the bat, all the while trying to reason with Durkee, calling him by name, Steven, telling him to stop, don't do this, and she hasn't done anything. Durkee made such statements as, I'm going to kill you, cunt, referring to Niffen, Bonacci, or both, and made statements such as, you betrayed me and you fucked her, along with other murmuring and, quote, stupid stuff. Damn, so Santos could have just dipped out, barely knows this lady, not even sleeping with her. He came back to save her. It's on an official police report. Exonerated of all charges. If anyone says anything else bad about Bonacci, man, they're tripping. Bonacci told me Durkee thought he and Niffen were sleeping together and was jealous, going on to tell me the death threats Durkee had been making to Niffen are extensive. Bonacci explained he is 7'5" and 125 pounds. Yeah, right, dude, you're not 125 pounds. While he described Durkee as being 6'2" and much larger than he. To this avail, Bonacci said several times he doesn't know where he got the strength to take on and overcome Durkee, describing it as divine intervention, and his, Bonacci's, meaning strength, as superhuman. That's still what he says to this day. He says his angels protected him. It was divine intervention. He was dumping adrenaline. This Durkee guy comes in high as a kite. He's not thinking straight. Gets wrapped up in a wrestling hold by Santos and gets stabbed in his arm, stabbed in his back and his side, and stabbed in the back of his head. Santos chopped him up, man. Damn. While Durkee and Bonacci were struggling and fighting on the couch, Durkee pulled a sharp knife from where Bonacci believed was his pants. Durkee then began trying to stab Bonacci, to which Bonacci grabbed a hold of the knife blade in order to try and control the knife and or disarm Durkee. As they fought over the knife and Bonacci attempted to gain control of it, Bonacci was able to redirect Durkee's slashing and or stabbing motions as he was making with the knife, as so to cause Durkee to cut and stab himself. Bonacci explained Durkee stabbed himself, both in part to him, Bonacci, forcing the knife away from himself and towards Durkee, as well as Durkee just missing Bonacci at times and hitting himself. Bonacci said it appeared to him as though Durkee was on drugs or something due to the way he was acting. I gotta take a break here, man. Where did my drink go? Do I not have my damn drink in here? Oh, man. Shit sucks to suck, I guess. I guess I'll keep going. Bonacci advised he and Durkee continued to wrestle and fight both on the couch and on the floor as Durkee continued his aggression towards them. When describing defending himself, Bonacci said he at different points struck Durkee with his hands, the bat, and the knife, while Niffen also finally hit Durkee in the head with the bat in an attempt to get him off of Bonacci. However, when trying to obtain specific details and sequences of events from him, Bonacci said numerous times that everything was such a blur, and it all happened so fast. When asking Bonacci what stopped the altercation and or how it ended, he told me he thinks Durkee exhausted all his energy and was fainting, going on to state he was in faint mode, as was Niffen. Bonacci continued, saying Durkee saw all of his blood and was staggering around. He said Durkee crashed into a table in the living room, which held up a bunch of crystals, and eventually fell down on the kitchen floor. It's like a movie. Bonacci watched as Durkee stood up and staggered into the adjoining dining room where he fell again, only to get back up and stagger back into the kitchen. He fell on the floor again, and he and Niffen fled the residence. Damn. Santos is a straight up killer, a true friend. Same thing here. They obtained the CDs recording the 911 calls, submitted them to evidence. Deputies arrived to find a bloody deceased male on the floor, and the subjects were transported to Riverbend Hospital. I had learned that Molly lived at the residence and had been in some kind of previous relationship with the deceased Stephen Durkee, who had been sending her threatening messages when he learned that she had another man staying with her. Durkee arrived that morning and assaulted Niffen with a bat until her friend Santos Bonacci intervened and attempted to defend her. During the efforts at fighting back, Durkee died after being struck with the bat he had brought and stabbed by the knife he had also introduced into the violence. I was tasked with collecting the cell phones from the three subjects involved and to download their digital contents to locate the threatening messages that would help back up Niffen's claim. Jaddy in the chat says, put some respect on Santos' name. Hey, full respect. I mean, we're almost through the majority of the police report. Everything he says, he never really wavered. Everything he says on the police report is how it happened. He could have left. He could have ran out and left his friend behind, and he didn't. A mad lad, Santos Bonacci, superhuman strength, took out the Greenpeace warrior. So this guy was going to get all the stuff off the cell phones that would prove those claims that he was sending crazy messages. So they collected they got Niffen and Bonacci consented to having their cell phones downloaded and provided their respective pins. Their phones were brought, blah, blah, blah. I recovered Durkee's cell phone from the vehicle. I photographed the car before opening it, blah, blah, blah. I returned to the sheriff's office. The first phone I extracted was a black iPhone XR that belonged to Santos. This phone was not password or PIN protected. I began an advanced logical file extraction using Cellebrite's iOS extraction feature within Physical Analyzer software program. After this program concluded, I loaded the extracted to the reader format of the Physical Analyzer and reviewed the SMM, the text, and found nothing related to the dispute. So Santos' phone has nothing on it about anything. Next, I attempted to extract the iPhone SSE that belonged to Molly. I entered the PIN. I did the Physical Analyzer thing. There was 60 gigs of data stored on the phone. You know, it was all Instagram memes about astrology and stuff like that. You know it. Due to the storage capacity issues with my computer that affected the speed of running this program, I experienced several difficulties in being able to extract this phone in that manner. I later connected the phone to the Cellebrite UFED Touch 2 device, and it did extract advanced logical file extraction of the phone data. This extraction was captured on a thumb drive that I provided to Deputy Ben Schaefer, who is a certified computerized forensic analysis with mobile forensic certifications to load into a higher-powered computer that he maintains in a computer lab. I learned that the threatening messages sent from Durkee to Niffen were discovered on this extraction, and Niffen's cell phone was returned to her. So she said Durkee was sending her crazy, "I'm going to kill you" text. Voluntarily hands the phone over. They extract it. It's on there. This is an open and shut case. Durkee fucked around and he found out. The iPhone belonging to the deceased Durkee was locked. There was no information available that would assist in determining what the passcode was. I enlisted the aid of Albany Police Department computer and mobile forensics analyst detective in an attempt to unlock this phone so that it can be extracted. This detective assisted me with the aid of a forensic device that will likely be able to unlock the phone over a period of time. Currently, this phone is still in the process of unlocking, and I will document any further developments or efforts. So they must use some brute force password, and they just have to, like, wait for it to run. Same thing here. Let's see. Durkee arrived at the house with a bat. She was bleeding. Santos helped fend her off. CPR. The electronic devices collected at Durkee's home. They went into Durkee's home a few days later. They got his work cell phone, work tablet, and laptop, put those in to be examined. On Tuesday, October 15th, so this is a few days later, I was given a Seagate USB hard drive. Blah, blah, blah. Got the partial extraction files of the iPhone belonging to the victim, Stephen Durkee. Detective Jones advised that the thumb drive contained Celebrate extraction files of an iPhone belonging to the complainant Molly Niffen. Jones requested I view the extracted files and attempt to locate text messages between Durkee and Niffen relevant to Durkee's death. I viewed and extracted files from Durkee's phones. Remember, they couldn't get it open, so he got into Durkee's phone, located numerous messages between Durkee and Niffen. I extracted a message exchange between Durkee and Niffen, and between these dates or whatever, submitted it. Man, what do you guys think? This is pretty wild, man. Here's the findings. Numerous SMS, that's text messages, were sent between Stephen Durkee and Molly Niffen. The messages sent between 10/11/2019 and 10/13/2019 appeared most relevant as they increased significantly in frequency and in threatening content from Stephen Durkee to Molly Niffen. Damn. So where's the messages? Fat Elvis says, I could request the messages, but it's all everything that's in here, including the audio and video interviews with Santos and the woman. You can request all that stuff, but there's a charge to all that. So I just got the police report. This is this guy's qualifications to do this, over 200 hours, blah, blah, blah. Everything. He's been doing it for 21 years. So this guy's an expert. Lane County Sheriff's Office. Same thing over and over again. What does this say? Took the bat. In addition to the sheriff's office personnel, blah, blah. I attached 10 pages. This is just, they're adding stuff. And then these are just the actual files that were like DVR containing the extracted iOS messages. This is all the, like, you could actually pull these if you wanted to, but this is all the evidence in the case. Shout out to Dang. He says, shout out to Benton Brown Boy Khan. This is all the official forms that everyone filled out for all the evidence. Man. So Santos Bonacci should be exonerated in the minds of anyone that would doubt him and what he says about what happened during that time, even though he does seem to be kind of spiraling out of control recently with his connection with Daniel and everything. He needs to do this to Daniel next. I wouldn't fuck with him, Daniel. This dude's a certified killer. Santos will take your ass out. Here it is. I, Santos, freely and voluntarily give consent to the investigators to retrieve everything, fingerprints. He writes all rights reserved and signed it. He talked about that on one of his, when he does that speech outside of that courthouse. He's like, you got to write this or something. That means it's under duress and null and void or something. This is the lady that was living in the van or whatever outside. Here's Santos again, giving over his property, cell phone, iPhone. Molly giving over her iPhone. So just the fact that these people would voluntarily give that over says a lot. Because of course, if it's real, you're gonna consent to it, right? And that's the whole report, man. 71 pages. I don't know, man. What do you guys think? Shout out to, there's a couple. Jessica threw down. Appreciate you, Lord Dorkington. Threw down. Appreciate all you guys. That's it, man. This some real research, man. I had to get to the bottom of it. I had to know. Excuse me. What happened here to Stephen Durkee? Dead as a turkey, right? I mean, Santos, man, if you ever watch this, if you're suffering from survival's guilt, it's easier said than done, right? I would say don't, man. You should be sleeping like a baby. You did the right thing. You're a real man. You're a warrior. You saved your friend. You were there. That your friend would be dead if you didn't do that. If you ran out of the house or whatever. He said he was going to hit her with a bat and cut her head off. And he showed up with a bat and a knife. The dude wasn't fucking around. But Santos was there to save the day. Hopefully Santos can get his life together, and got to get away from Daniel, bro. I know you love him, but it went all downhill when he got involved with Daniel. You know I'm not the only one saying that, Santos. You gotta give him the Durkee. You gotta give him the Durkee treatment, Santos. Yeah, man. So I guess that's it. That's MrAstrotheology. If you don't know Santos, 250,000 subscribers, bona fide G, certified thug, straight up killer, and you can't teach that. Look at this. This little dude, 6'1", 190, and this is the last thing he saw right here, sitting over him, and he just thought, damn, I fucked up. He had kids and everything, and this little dude got him. Look at that little arm. That's why you don't mess with these little guys, dude. Santos is crazy. These little dudes will fuck you up, man. Little crazy, little pit bull type dude. Man. Well, I guess that's it, man. I don't want to keep you guys here. I wanted to go through that. Show you guys some real research. That's how you do some research here in the truth community. Santos is exonerated. If anyone calls him a murderer or anything, make sure you guys show him this. If anyone wants to do a reaction video to this, if you can just link it or whatever, give me the credit. And if you found this helpful, again, any small donation helps. CashApp, Venmo, PayPal. The name on all three is getchalkedup. Or you can use that super thanks feature if you're watching it later on YouTube. So shout out to the chat. I appreciate everyone that was here. And I appreciate your time. And peace out.